So without further ado, let's get to today's video. Okay, so my daughter is 11 and a half. She would be technically entering sixth grade if she were in middle school. And I also want to let you know that my perspective is coming from somebody who has been in youth ministry for a very long time, probably about 15 plus years. Okay. So, wow, middle schoolers, there's nothing that can strike fear in people or dread like saying like, I have a middle schooler or I'm going to have a middle schooler. We kind of have this thought that, oh, the middle school year is their attitude. They fight with us, they're lazy, all of these things. And I wanted to share that the youth pastor that we trained under and discipled us and was a very big part of my husband's life really stressed to us to not be negative about teens or early teens like that, and especially as parents, to actually speak life into our child, to say like, no, I refuse to accept this. Like, I refuse to accept that my relationship with my daughter is going to change because she now has hormones raging in her body. Okay. And to kind of stop with the whole like, oh, teenagers, oh, middle schoolers, they're just so difficult kind of thought process, and to really kind of change it. And I will say, with the many years that I have been in student ministry, I love middle schoolers. They're actually my favorite age range. I like middle schoolers and I like seniors in high school. Middle schoolers they're just such a unique animal. I love middle school girls and boys, and I feel like they kind of get talked about in a negative way a lot. And why is that? Why do we do that as society? Why do we look at our precious little 9-year-old and that shifts when she turns 12, right? Like, what is the difference there? And I realize that they're changing. That's a big thing. Like, when our children are, hit that tween age, they are changing. There's no doubt about that is happening, right? And I think us as parents are changing too. And what happens is we almost don't know what to do with them anymore. We're like, okay, when they're little, they just want to hug us and be with us all the time, and we're number one, right? And then when they kind of hit middle school, they're really, really spreading their wings, and they want to their friends really become very important to them. Their voices become very important to them. And as they're trying to figure out who they are as a person, they're also very insecure. And so it means that sometimes as parents, we get lashed out on a little bit. But I do want to challenge you that if you are facing a middle schooler, don't despair, okay? Don't be like dreading it. It is so rewarding. It is so rewarding. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch your child go from literal childhood and start changing into the person that they're going to be really for the rest of their life. And what a unique and incredible opportunity we have as parents, as homeschooling parents, to have a front row view of that and a front row voice of that. And that's one of the amazing things about homeschoolers. In fact, what I hear often is people saying like, oh, well, I'll homeschool like for elementary school and then I'll put my kid into middle school because I can't do it anymore. And I'd actually like to reverse that. If I was really had to like make the choice, I would much rather send my child to elementary school in a public school setting or private school setting and bring them home for middle and high school, because they are such formative years. And so that's just my opinion. That's from what I've seen. Middle school is never an option for our family for public school. It's just not. So there's that. Don't despair, because you have this incredible opportunity to pour into your child and to witness who they are becoming right in front of your eyes. And it doesn't have to be this negative hardship, okay? It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be fighting with your middle schooler. I promise you, there's a different way to do it. And you know, it's a really important thing that we are listening to our children and we're hearing our children and we're letting them speak, and that their voice has value and that it counts. And, you know, I also see, as somebody who has an interest and really tries to practice gentle parenting, I also see sometimes gentle parenting going out the window when we hit those tween years. And I would really encourage you to not do that. If anything, I think that they need even more love and guidance and support from their parents now than even when they were younger. So that's my whole spiel on that. I know that I kind of went down a bunny trail with that, but yeah, homeschooling a middle schooler, and what does that look like, and how are we going to do things differently? So let me just say, we were doing gather around before before we stopped for the end of the year and for the past, couple units. And I already had Adeline doing the middle school work for gather around. I felt like she was ready for it. I didn't, in the marine biology unit, there was a lot with paper writing and like citing sources that I felt like was a little bit above her head because she is really still new to paper writing. So I did omit that stuff with her. I said, we'll talk about this. This is what sourcing is, but we're going to really learn like how to do it and how to format it, a little bit later. And of course, talking about how we're not going to plagiarize things and blah, 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 all that stuff. But she was already kind of doing this middle school work anyway. And like, how does that look different? What does that look like? So for this year, for sixth grade, we are definitely amping up our paper writing, or our writing in general. And that is something that Adeline, her stamina isn't super awesome with writing. She gets fatigued from writing a little bit. So we have been working, and we are working on kind of just building up that stamina and writing in all sorts of different ways. One thing that we are focusing on this year is biographies. It's not really anything I've ever done with her before. We have done a couple. We've done like Helen Keller and Albert Einstein and Benjamin Banneker. But I really, this year, I want her to really focus on biographies. But that, I wouldn't say that that's like a middle school specific thing, because I'm having Lila do it as well, and she's only going into fourth grade. It's just something that we haven't really done a whole lot of, and I really want to do this year because I think it's important. So paper writing is definitely one thing that we're going to be doing more, but I don't just mean like, persuasive essays, which is sometimes we can get kind of stuck in, or book reports, all different kinds of writing. Yeah, so paper writing, but not just, essays, but, blog posts, how to write a letter to your governor, or, just different things, letter writing, which we did work on some last year. We actually did do letter writing last year. But, different kinds of writing, different creative writings, different poetry, just really focusing on writing in general, but not just like paper, because I think that sometimes that's difficult for a middle schooler when they go from elementary school, where they don't do a ton of that, to middle school where it's like, bam, we're going to write a paper, every month or whatever. So that's kind of where we're at for that. As far as reading, Adeline's reading level is quite high. She's, right now in the Lord of the Rings series. She loves to read, and I don't feel like I can like all of a sudden like force like more higher level of reading or whatever that is, because you can't really do that. You really have to go at your child's pace. So will she be reading more this year? Yes, definitely. It's my hope that my kids are always reading more every year, regardless if they're in middle school or high school or not. Just that's something that is always building upon itself. Now, we will be focusing a little bit more on like health this year, but we did do a lot of that last year: nutrition, exercise, things like that. Just really, because it is those changing years, we'll be having a lot more conversations about those things. But in general, sixth grade is not going to look a whole lot different than the years past, except for that I'm putting my own curriculum together this year. I guess I just get confused with why we suddenly feel like we need to go because they're in sixth grade, or dare I say like because they're in ninth grade. I just think that like one of the most amazing things about homeschooling is that you can build on year after year, that you don't have to have this sudden sixth grade change like you would in a public school, that you're able to really just gently and organically go into more in education. So I do personally feel like, and this is from my family, that it is important in the middle school years that we really begin to search out and kind of switch a little bit from more parent-led to more student-led education. So I really want to take my children's gifts and their interests and really pursue those things, because they are getting older and they're figuring out what they like to study and what they don't like to study, what they excel at and what they struggle at a little bit more. And I think it's important that in the middle school years, when they're finding their voice, that they have a say in their education and what they're studying. Now, that does not mean that if she decides that she doesn't want to study math, that she's not going to study math, because that's not a thing, right? It just means that she has a little bit more say in where she goes with her studies and her thought process and how to come up with those things. So if I want her to write a biography, for instance, I can say, what time period are you interested in? Or what kind of person are you interested in? Are you interested in a scientist, an artist, a historical figure, a current figure? Like, what does that look like? And really giving her the opportunity to be like, well, I'm really interested in, insects. So I would like to study somebody who is prominent in that study, right? I just think it's important. And I think as parents, as we're talking about the middle school and like the butting of heads, that is really going to help with a desire to do schoolwork if they're studying something that they want to study. I mean, that's obvious, right? So that is one of my goals for middle school, is to really give my children a voice in what they're studying. And that doesn't mean that they don't have a voice in elementary school, because they totally do. But I also think like when they're in first grade, they don't even necessarily know that some of these studies and interests or time periods even exist. So it's my job to really just present my child with all of these beautiful, awesome things, and for them to start picking out their interests. So I guess that's probably the difference in middle school versus elementary school with myself. And then the only other thing that I think is different for us in elementary school versus middle school is independence in their work. But I see it a lot in homeschooling where people are like, oh, well, they're in 7th grade now, they should be able to do this all themselves. And I'm not necessarily sure that I agree. I want to be, there's a fly in my room. Sorry, guys. Welcome to summer. I am just not one of those parents that I want to be completely checked out of my child's education. I don't think teaching should stop because our kids can now read to themselves. That's just not me. That's not how I resonate. And you might do something different, but for me, that's how I feel. Like for me, I feel like I want to still be involved. I want to still be reading to her, even when she's in 11th grade. I want to still be having these discussions and not just like, yep, my work is done, whatever, mom, check it over, that kind of thing. To me, that's not that like rich education that I feel like I should be giving my child. So that's a little bit of a difference, I guess, separating myself versus others. I see a lot of people just be like, well, I can't wait until like my kid is in 8th grade and they can do all this on their own. And yeah, they totally can, and they will. Like when Lexi was here and doing her school, she did a lot of stuff independently. I guess what I'm saying is that I just don't think that teaching stops because my kid is now in 7th grade and can read out of a book for themselves. And that guidance. So that's really confusing because I'm like child-led and I'm like, but I'm also going to be involved and I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I have a vision in my head on what I want it to look like. So maybe I'll update in a couple years and let you know how it went. But yeah, that's really us for middle school and for our plans for middle school. I don't know really what else to say other than this is what we're doing. This is what works for my family. What you do for your family is going to be different. I just want to reiterate that you don't have to put all this pressure on your child and yourself necessarily because they're in 6th grade now. And I think we hear the word enough a whole lot more when we hit middle school or these upper ages. Is it enough? Is this math curriculum enough? Is this enough? And I've talked about enough before a lot, and what is enough and who is measuring enough. Because if your child is learning and they're learning, things that they're interested in and they're progressing, then my guess is that's probably enough, just in my opinion. So yeah, I guess maybe I want to challenge people on that. Challenge that. Why does why is middle school this huge shift? Why is it that we no longer think we can homeschool in middle school? Because if anything, I think it's more important to homeschool in middle school. Why is it that we feel like we can kind of check out a little bit because our kid is now pretty self-sufficient? Anyway, just questions for the homeschool community to kind of process and think about and talk about. But that's where I'm at. That's middle school. That's how we're doing middle school. I've had questions and I've seen a lot of comments, so I just wanted to come on and make this video and talk about it. So I'd love to know what you're doing for middle school. What are you doing differently for middle school? What are you doing that's the same? Drop me a comment below. Let me know. I'd really like to know. And then high school, I think maybe I'm going to make a separate video on high school. I have similar thoughts, but a little bit different because, of course, you know, high school, we're now talking about credits and we're talking about college and we're talking about career choices and all of those things. So there's a little bit more to it. But yeah, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for listening. And if you haven't done so, I would love for you to join my homeschool group, Free Homeschool Year. I am homeschooling my kids this year for free, and I am inviting you along the journey as I do so, whether or not you're going to be homeschooling for free or not. If you're just a homeschooler or you're interested in homeschooling, join anyway. I would love to have you for sure. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Maple and Roots. Subscribe below, ring the bell for notifications of all my future uploads, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.